Live from New Delhi, you're watching DD India Global. We'll get you top stories from India and the region. I'm Tanvi Taneja. And for news from the rest of the world, I'm joined by my colleague in London, Ollie Barrett. Good afternoon, Ollie.
Hello Tanvi, it's 12:30 p.m. here in London, 1:30 p.m. across Central Europe. Coming up in the next half hour, Julian Assange leaves the UK after years behind bars. The EU begins expansion talks with 2 countries, and live to Euro 2024 for an update from Berlin. First, the headlines.
WikiLeaks founder Julian Assange is due to plead guilty in Saipan for violating the US espionage law. After he was released from a UK prison today, Australia wants Assange brought back home, says Prime Minister Albanese.
While this is a welcome development, we recognise that these proceedings are crucial and they're delicate. There is nothing to be gained by his continued incarceration, and we want him brought home to Australia.
Emmanuel Macron's opponents slam his comments that a victory of the far-right National Rally or the left-wing New Popular Front alliance will lead France into civil war. And it's Om Birla versus opposition's K. Suresh for the post of India's Lok Sabha Speaker, voting to be held on Wednesday. WikiLeaks founder Julian Assange was granted bail by the High Court in London and was released at the Stansted Airport during the afternoon, where he boarded a plane and departed the UK. Assange left Belmarsh maximum security prison after having spent 1,901 days there. On his release, WikiLeaks said, "This is the result of a global campaign all the way to the United Nations. This created the space for a long period of negotiations with the US Department of Justice." The charges against the WikiLeaks founder in the US stem from one of the largest publications of classified information in American history. Assange, 52, has agreed to plead guilty to a single criminal count of conspiring to obtain and disclose classified US national defense documents. Julian Assange's wife and WikiLeaks editor Stella Assange thanked their supporters outside the London prison. Further, Stella told news agency Reuters that she is elated but also worried until the deal is fully signed off. She further said that they have almost got Assange's freedom.
I feel elated. I also feel worried, because I'm so used to this. Anything could happen. I'm worried that until it's fully signed off, I worry. But it looks like we've got there, and Julian's free. So I'll really believe it when I have him in front of me, and I can take him and hug him, and then it will be real.
The cost to Julian, of course, has been to be deprived of freedom for all these years. In the battle for journalistic freedom, freedom to publish, foundation of democracy.
Elsewhere in Australia, Prime Minister Anthony Albanese said that he wanted Julian Assange brought back home to Australia as soon as possible.
The government is certainly aware that Australian citizen Mr Julian Assange has legal proceedings scheduled in the United States. While this is a welcome development, we recognise that these proceedings are crucial and they're delicate. Given these proceedings are ongoing, it isn't appropriate to provide further detailed comment. I will say, though, that the Australian government has continued to provide consular assistance to Mr Assange through the UK High Commissioner, Stephen Smith, who travelled with Mr Assange when he left the United Kingdom, and US Ambassador Kevin Rudd. who is also providing important assistance.
Now, free speech organizations welcomed Monday's news of WikiLeaks founder Julian Assange's release from jail in Britain, but also said that the US case had still set a bad precedent by punishing him for this long. My colleague Ollie Barrett is in London. He takes this story forward from me here and also gives us more on other stories making headlines around the world. Ollie, what happens next for Assange from here? Australian Prime Minister wants him back home.
Well, Tanvi, he's on his way there, in that direction at least. WikiLeaks founder Julian Assange, as you were saying, landing earlier in a Bangkok airport to begin with. A video posted by WikiLeaks on X showed Julian Assange signing a document before boarding the plane from London. Assange is due to be sentenced to 62 months at a hearing in Saipan on Wednesday, but won't then spend further time in prison because of the time already behind bars here in the UK over the last 5 years. Now, ahead of Assange's court appearance in Saipan, the governor there said that the island has less potential for a lot of chaos with the press. Assange is en route to a courtroom on the island where he's expected to plead guilty on Wednesday. According to US prosecutors, Assange wanted to go to a court closer to his home of Australia, but not on the continental United States.
The closest jurisdiction to Australia that's in a US soil with a federal court. Obviously, I mean, we could also think about it. There's less potential for a lot of chaos with the press and press coverage and all that. So they wanted to get this done efficiently and get it done and
DD India's Laura Westbrook has more.
WikiLeaks founder Julian Assange has left a British prison and is on his way to the Northern Mariana Islands via Bangkok. Now, these islands in the Pacific were chosen because of Assange's opposition to traveling to the mainland United States and because of their proximity to Australia. Now, security in Bangkok was reportedly tight when his plane landed, and according to the BBC, he was unable to be seen from outside the terminal, and he's unlikely to leave because of immigration protocols. Now, his plane is being refueled in Bangkok before he heads to Saipan in the Northern Mariana Islands. This is where on Wednesday he's due to appear in a US courtroom where he will plead guilty before moving to Australia, a free man. Now, this comes after years of legal challenges and diplomatic pressure, including from Australia. And the Australian Prime Minister, Anthony Albanese, has said that no matter what your opinion is, this case has dragged on for far too long. In Hong Kong, Laura Westbrook, reporting for DD India.
There's been reaction international that lead to their WikiLeaks announcement that its founder Julian Assange has left a British prison. Expressing his happy reaction, US presidential candidate Robert F. Kennedy Jr. posted on X that he says Julian Assange is a generational hero and will go free. Cuban President Miguel Diaz-Canel also wrote on X that what he called his long and cruel punishment will remain in the memory of the people. In other news, the European Union's opening membership talks with Ukraine and Moldova in Luxembourg on Tuesday. The talks come after the EU assessed Ukrainian legislation for reforms to meet the bloc's standards. The Ukrainian delegation is being led by Deputy Prime Minister Olga Stefanishina, while the Prime Minister Dorin Recian will lead the Moldovan delegation. Marking the start of talks with Ukraine and Moldova, the EU is signalling that both countries are on a path towards further integration with the West. Israel is calling for a diplomatic solution and says it will spend the coming weeks trying to resolve the conflict with Hezbollah. Israel's national security advisor says the country's been discussing the possibility with the United States. Tensions between the two sides escalated after Hezbollah chief Hassan Nasrallah issued fresh threats to Israel.
We believe in this arrangement. Some are more skeptic than us, but we and the Americans believe in it. And we will dedicate long weeks now in an attempt to reach an arrangement. If there will not be an arrangement through diplomatic means, everyone understands that there must be an arrangement through other means. For now, we prefer to focus on the diplomatic campaign.
The UK's Conservative Party has withdrawn support from two parliamentary candidates as internal inquiries are underway over the alleged bets placed on the timing of the July the 4th election. Parliamentary candidate Craig Williams, who was a close aide to Prime Minister Rishi Sunak, had already apologised for placing a bet. The scandal then escalated when media reported the country's regulator was looking into allegations of improper betting by a second candidate, Saunders and her husband, Tony Lee. In France, the President Emmanuel Macron's political opponents are slamming him over remarks that France could descend into a civil war if his rivals win upcoming snap polls. In a podcast, Macron criticised both far-right and left-wing rivals, saying their solutions to deal with fears over crime and immigration were based on division. Far-right leader Marine Le Pen said Macron has been using the same tactic in every election.
Macron hasn't changed a lot. He held every presidential campaign saying it's either me or chaos. I think the French have realized that he is a chaos. He personified chaos since he was first elected. And I think his argument, comments on civil war, is very weak and shows that he knows he has already lost this election.
Next to Euro 2024, where Austria will face the Netherlands in their final Group D game later today. In Dortmund, France will try to get the goals flowing against already eliminated Poland, with France seeking to finish top of their Euro 2024 group. And we can go live now to DD India's Trent Murray, who is in Berlin at a fan zone. And Trent, we also have England-Slovenia later and Denmark against Serbia as Group C concludes too. What are officials in Germany saying about the behaviour of fans so far? And we've also had some issues that fans were experiencing with transport at the start of the tournament. Have those issues started to ease at all?
Yeah, look, certainly the fan groups are saying that some of those initial transport problems that they were experiencing have somewhat subsided. Much of it is centred on the English supporters because they are based at a place called Gelsenkirchen. Now, this is a smaller town. It doesn't have great transport infrastructure, and so therein lies why many of the delays and people having to stand on platforms for hours on end have come about. Tonight's match for England will be in Cologne, a much bigger city where presumably transport will be much more able to handle the crowd numbers. But I should also really bring you here to Berlin, where there is a really big build-up ahead of that Dutch-Austrian game. We're just about 20 minutes away or so before the fans are let in here to the fan zone. You might have just heard the Austrian folk singer warming up there, ready to woo the crowds. And there is a really big build-up ahead of this game. This is sort of the first big match we've had in Berlin where we're expecting huge numbers. At any one time, actually, in this fan zone, around 130,000 people can come in and watch the festivities, and we are expecting it to reach capacity tonight. It's very warm today as well, Ollie. They're saying temperatures are in the low to mid-30s, and for that reason authorities are telling people to keep hydrated. We've also had, could you believe it, a message posted by the British Embassy here in Germany reminding English fans that beer in Germany is stronger than what they have in the United Kingdom, and they're telling them for that reason to drink in moderation as they watch that match tonight.
Trent Murray in Berlin and the Austrian folk singer. Thank you. That's it from me here in London, Tanvi. Hopefully you won't have to battle against an Austrian folk singer for the rest of the bulletin.
No, thank you very much, Ollie. Ollie Barrett joining us all from London. Still to come on DD India Global. Protests intensify in Kenya as thousands rally nationwide against the proposed tax hikes. And China's Change 6 lunar probe lands back safely on Earth, marking the first attempt to bring back samples from the moon's far side.
Complex issues, hidden agendas, twists and turns, strategic games. We think all dots are linked, we just need to connect them. Join me every week as I connect the dots to unravel hidden designs in statecraft, mysteries, and decode issues that matter to you. Watch Connecting the Dots with me at these times on DD India.
Welcome back. You're watching DD India Global and I'm Tanvi Taneja. On to updates from India now. The second day of the 18th session of the lower house of India's parliament, Lok Sabha, began today with newly elected MPs taking oaths as members of the house. The Bharatiya Janata Party's member of parliament from Rajasthan's Kota, Om Birla, on Tuesday filed his nomination for the post of Speaker of the 18th Lok Sabha. He has been chosen as the NDA, National Democratic Alliance's candidate for the post of Speaker. Birla also held the position in the previous house. NDA leaders signed a motion paper in favour of Om Birla for the Speaker of the 18th Lok Sabha today. Meanwhile, Congress MP K. Suresh also filed his nomination for the post of Speaker of the 18th Lok Sabha. The opposition Indi Alliance has fielded K. Suresh for the post. The election of the Lok Sabha Speaker will be conducted on Wednesday. June 25th marks the 50th anniversary of the Indian emergency, considered as a dark chapter in the history of Indian democracy. Imposed on June 25th, 1975 by the then Prime Minister Indira Gandhi, the emergency lasted until March 21st, 1977. This marked a period of significant political and social upheaval in the country. This period is in fact considered as a dark and the most tumultuous period in India's democratic journey. A report.
On June 25, 1975, India was plunged into an era of political darkness. Former Prime Minister Indira Gandhi declared a nationwide emergency, citing internal disturbances and threats to national security. However, many believe it was a desperate attempt to maintain power amid growing opposition. During the emergency, civil liberties were suspended, the press was censored, and political opponents were arrested. Prominent opposition leaders, activists, and journalists were kept behind bars and their voices were stifled.
भारत के लोकतंत्र में जो काला धब्बा लगा था, उसके 50 वर्ष हो रहे हैं. जो लोग भारत की लोकतांत्रिक परंपराओं पे निष्ठा रखते हैं, उनके लिए 25 जून न भूलने वाला दिवस है.
The emergency had varying impacts across India. In the north, the crackdown was more intense, leading to a significant backlash against the Congress party. The period also saw the rise of regional parties, altering the political landscape significantly. India emerged from the emergency with the formation of Janata government, the first non-Congress coalition government at the national level. This government was formed as a strong anti-emergency platform, restoring democratic norms and values. Internationally, the emergency was met with concern affecting India's image as a democratic nation. While some countries criticized the suspension of democratic processes, others continued their support based on strategic interest. During the emergency, diplomatic relations were strained with varied reactions from the global community. Some nations condemned the move while others focused on strategic interests. The emergency period remains a pivotal chapter in India's history, highlighting the importance of democratic safeguards and the resilience of the Indian populace in the face of authoritarianism. As we reflect on this period, it serves as a cautionary tale about the need to protect and cherish our democratic institutions. Kriti Vadhera's report for DD India.
Bangladesh Prime Minister Sheikh Hasina on Tuesday said that her recent visit to India was very successful, though it was brief. Addressing a press conference in Dhaka on the outcome of her state visit, she said the visit will play a pivotal role in strengthening relations between India and Bangladesh. On the Teesta River project, she said her government is looking forward to receive the most beneficial proposal for Bangladesh and its people over implementing the Teesta Master Plan project. On to Africa now. Youth-led protests against Kenyan government's plans to increase taxes intensified on Tuesday as lawmakers debated proposed amendments to a finance bill. At least one person has been killed and more than 200 injured since demonstrations swept the country earlier this month. The government aims to raise $2.7 billion in additional taxes to reduce the budget deficit and state borrowing. Kenya's public debt stands at 68% of the GDP. Protesters argue that tax hikes will raise the cost of living. DD India's Isabel Nakrea reports from Kampala.
The protesters are very angry at a proposed bill, a controversial finance bill that proposes that taxes on bread, basic items like bread, fuel, and of course mobile phones. And of course they are saying that President Ruto has failed on his promises to reduce taxes and of course reduce on the cost of living. So they feel like they are ready to protest on these heavy taxes and of course try to push pressure on the government to reduce these taxes. Today, members of parliament were debating in the House and the Azimio MPs, that is the ruling MPs for the President Ruto's government, have rolled back on these levies on bread and mobile phones and of course car ownership. But of course the Treasury has warned that this will cause a shortfall of $1.5 billion in the government. And of course President Ruto says that he's ready to have a conversation with the protesters and of course come to find a way forward for these taxes.
And now we take a look at other stories making news around the world. For the first time in years, women are among the new faces patrolling the streets of the Somali capital as traffic police officers. This initiative reflects an increase in the number of women taking on public roles amid a security crackdown. The chief executive of South Korean battery firm Aricel apologized on Tuesday for the deadly fire at its plant that killed 23 workers. Aricel CEO Park Soon-kwan told reporters that the company had conducted enough safety training for its workers. The finance ministers of Japan and South Korea on Tuesday expressed serious concerns about the sharp depreciation of Japan's yen and South Korea's won currencies. Both leaders vowed to take steps against excessive and disorderly foreign exchange moves. Russia's Admiral Gorshkov Navy frigate conducted drills in the Atlantic Ocean searching for submarines using a helicopter, the Defense Ministry said on Tuesday. The crew of the helicopter practiced tactical techniques for searching and tracking submarines in the Atlantic Ocean. From water to space now. China's Change 6 lunar probe has successfully returned to Earth, bringing back the first ever samples from the moon's far side. The spacecraft landed in Inner Mongolia region on Tuesday. marking a significant milestone in lunar exploration and China's space program. These samples will reveal new details about the formation of the Earth, the Moon, and the solar system.
The Sizawang banner in Inner Mongolia. The helicopter has arrived.
So that's it in this edition of DD India Global. Do let us know your thoughts on the news of the day. Connect with us on our different social media handles, Facebook, X and Instagram at DD India Live. And for those on the go, you can catch all the latest news and updates from India and across the world on our DD India mobile app. The app is available on both Android and iOS platforms. So we will be back with more news as it breaks here on DD India. I'm Tanvi Taneja from my entire team here in New Delhi. Thank you for watching. Namaskar.